Hello, hello, and welcome everyone to another exciting circuit stream workshop. I am thrilled to have a special guest join us here today in alongside myself for this workshop and webinar. But before I do continue on, can you all let me know to the chat in the right there if you can hear me and see me? I see Dayon, we live, Louise, John, Chunte, Kirsten, Steve, Liam sounds great, Dennis, Natasha, Laura, Atlal. Lovely, awesome. Everyone can hear me and see me. That's wonderful. I'd hate to continue on without, anyone being able to actually follow along. But it's great to have you all join us here today. Today we'll be going through UX for XR with Cornel Hillman. And Cornel is a leading XR designer and CG artist, author as well, who will show us how to deliver an XR project from start to finish or finish to start. Now, with this, I love asking this question to all of the workshop audiences that we see come across here. Where are you currently tuning in from? I see Adrian is also already said hello from France. Welcome, France. Dennis in Brazil. We see Tomasz from Argentina, Brazil, USA, Russia, London, Germany, Montreal, Canada, Oakland, California, the UK. So people from all over the world again. I love seeing such an international audience, and it's great to have you all here with us. Thank you so much for joining. Now, without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Let's get things rolling. My name is Stefan. I'm on the partnerships team here at Circus Stream. I have over several years of experience in the tech industry, working with travel IT companies, learning management system providers, ERP and business integration platforms, and now in the beautiful world of real-time 3D technology, VR, AR, MR, XR in general. And a little interesting fact about myself, let me know if you've ever heard of water polo in the chat. I was a member of Water Polo Canada. I trained with the 2008 Beijing Olympic team. Never went to the Olympics, but great experience nonetheless. However, I did actually use the skills to save a couple in Mexico who were taken out by the currents, drowning in the water. Pulled the lady in, went back for the man. Lifeguard joined me. We pulled them in together. So put my skills to great use. Wasn't in the Olympics, but nonetheless, a story I love to share here. Now, today it's an honor and a pleasure to have Cornel Hillman join me today. Cornel is a creative director, XR designer, CG artist, and author. He is the leading expert in UX for XR and immersive realities. And we'll be going through how to, kickstart your XR project, all the design concepts to keep in mind. Cornel will touch on how his books are, a little bit more about them as well, and then we'll go through everything all together. And now, on the topic of the UX for XR book giveaway, thank you everyone for participating and sharing, those of you in the audience. We will be announcing the winners tomorrow on November 25th by email. Cornell's publisher, A-Press, will send out physical copies of the book to 6 winners there. So thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate it. And yes, Louise here in the chat from the last workshop. I like the way you interacted with us by creating polls. Can you do it again? Of course. So a few housekeeping items while we're here. As you see, there is a chat box. You're all fairly familiar with it. Beside the chat, there is a questions tab as well. So if you have any questions for myself, for my colleagues backstage, for Cornel, please do toss them into the questions tab. This helps us really track what questions haven't been answered. We have a Q&A session at the very end as well, where Cornel and I will go through the questions and he'll answer some of those for you. Now, beside the questions tab, there is a polls tab. And thank you again, Louise, for reminding me. The polls tab, I'll toss in polls to gauge the experience of the audience here a little bit. And, why not toss a poll in right now? Feel free to navigate to the polls tab. I would love to know, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being none, 10 being an expert, how much UX experience do you have? So do go to the polls tab. Feel free to select an option in the polls. I'm curious to know, how much experience do you have with UX? So it looks like we have it's a mixed audience here today. You know, it looks like we've got sevens, eights, twos, and fives leading the way. So some beginners, some closer to the expert level. This will really help myself and Cornel tailor the presentation a little bit better for you all. But thank you. Hopefully that helps there. And thanks again, Luis, for letting us know. Now, what is the agenda like here today? Well, I'm going to do a quick 10-minute introduction about who is Circuit Stream, what do we do. Then I'll introduce Cornel onto the stage, where he will do a UX for XR deep dive. That'll take about 45 minutes or so. Once Cornel wraps up there, I'll join in again, conclude the presentation for about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll open it up for a live Q&A session at the very end. Now, this all will be recorded, and we will send it out to you by email, as well as some files and resources we're working out with today. So for those of you tuning in from abroad, if it is quite late, I know it's quite late for Cornel, not a worry at all. We will send you the recording to work with afterwards. So Circuit Stream, who are we? What do we do? Well, Circuit Stream was founded in 2015 when we identified a gap in the demand for education relating to AR and VR. Our goal has always been to share a foundation of knowledge on the best tools, processes, and workflows for Unity, Unreal, as well as XR design and development. And to date, we've helped over 40,000 learners develop these highly sought after technical skills. Now, what we have here at Circuit Stream is a global team of industry experts who are passionate about accelerating the VR and AR industry through education. We have team members and instructors all over the world, which helps us accommodate students across multiple time zones and geographies. I myself am in Canada. You might see my colleague backstage. He's in Canada as well. Cornel's in Singapore. People all over the world. Same with the audience that we have joining us today. Opa, let me go back here. Perfect. So Circuit Stream is also a Unity training and channel partner, and partners are approved based on their expertise, focus on quality education, and the demonstrated success of their students. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Unity, they have created one of the most extensive and robust development engines on the market, and we may touch that a little bit later on. Our instructors, however, do maintain the highest levels of certification available by Unity. Now, speaking of certifications, I'm very excited to also share that Circuit Stream is one of the few educators in the space offering XR industry-specific certifications, but more on that later. So who have we actually worked with? Well, we've trained teams and professionals from some of the largest organizations in the world, such as VMware, Walmart, Hershey's, the chocolate company, even the US Navy, just to name a few. And we work with organizations large and small, right down to the individual learner. Now, let's talk about the XR industry. If the last slide didn't give you a good idea of who's adopting this technology, here's an overview of the industries that are currently employing XR. Organizations are adapting this technology to create efficiencies, further innovate, and in use cases such as military, automotive, manufacturing industries, and much more. And immersive tech is really helping greatly reduce the risk in these fields. Now, interesting statistics I want to show here. Pricewaterhouse released a report in 2019 saying that 23.5 million jobs around the world will be using augmented and virtual reality by 2030 for training, collaboration, and to provide new digital experiences. Now, VR and AR have the potential to add 1.5 trillion to the global economy by 2030. And I do see someone here wanted to potentially see the last slide for a sec. My apologies, but lots of industries embracing XR and all over the world, really, as you can see. So hopefully that helps there, Dennison, that you can see the slide. But it is growing, and it's just going to grow more and more as the years go on. Now, as you can see, there are a number of roles and titles that require XR experience, from developers and artists to project managers and quality assurance. And who knows, maybe your ideal role has yet to be invented. Also, for all of you indie devs and artists, there's still a shortage of high quality content on the on XR marketplaces waiting for you to enter that arena. So it means that now is the best time to be expanding your skill set. Currently, XR experience is in high demand. This is exasperated by the fact that the job growth for AR and VR is continuing at a rapid pace. And there's even new roles and titles regularly being introduced to the job market specific to AR and VR. And take a look at what happens when you have specifically Unity skills in your repertoire. That's right, Burning Glass Technologies, Burning Glass, a company that researches real-time job market analytics, found that on average, professionals with real-time 3D skills, Unity or Unreal skills, are making $20,000 more in salary than their counterparts who are unfamiliar with this tool here. So that was a little bit about the industry. Now, if you're looking to get into this, yourself, if you're a designer, a developer, an artist, someone interested in this looking to get into it, we'd love to have you with us. We have 3 courses and programs here at Circus Stream that I'll dive into a little bit later on. We recently launched a new curriculum, the Introduction to Unity 3D Development course. It's all live instructor-led courses and programs that focus on Unity, the fundamentals of Unity, and have students creating while they learn. Now, if you're interested in these, I'll dive into them a little bit later. We have a development course for developers, a design course for designers, and I'll touch up on it a little later on. But now that you've learned a little bit about us and the industry, what are you all here today for? What are you going to learn? Well, today we'll show you how to storyboard your new XR design project, how to develop a design process from start to finish, how to communicate deliverables with your client, how professionals like Cornel grow their reputation through the design work, and answers to your questions, a live Q&A with Cornel at the very end of this presentation here. And I'm super excited to see the questions come into the questions tab as well as anywhere else. Now, let's get this show on the road. I would love to take this moment to invite Cornel onto the stage here. Really a pleasure and an honor to have Cornel join us. Cornel has worked with brands including Panasonic, Jaguar, The Future is Wild, the Singapore International Film Festival, Razer, and many others. He's lectured masterclasses for immersive media production, advanced 3D, VR, and media design courses at Lim Kok Kwang University. So Cornel, take your time. Feel free to make your way onto the stage here whenever you get a moment. But as we do wait for Cornel to make his way onto the stage, let's see what the chat has been saying. We've got a lot of people here from Philly. Louise, midway through UX UI Bootcamp. Hey, great to see you, Louise. Let's see, we've got Imtisal typing here. And Dennison, anytime. Glad that Dayan was able to help you out. And Cornel, hey, great to see you. Thank you for joining.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. I'm very excited. Super cool. Thanks a lot.
Of course.
So I'm very excited about this workshop. It's something new to me as well. Doing the live thing. I usually don't do that kind of thing, so it's something new for me. But so I'm happy to talk about my personal workflow, which is my own way of doing things, right? Mm-hmm. So, and of course, I want to introduce my books. And let me share my screen. Should I do that?
Perfect. Yeah, take your time.
Okay.
So, everyone, you're all in great hands with Cornel. I'll be backstage. My colleague Dayan will be backstage as well. So any questions, let us know. Cornel, feel free to take it away. If there's anything we can help you with, give us a shout. But with this, you're all in great hands. Cornel's going to take the next 45 minutes or so with you all. And I'm sure I'll be back very shortly after that.
Okay, let me see. Wait, where is it?
No worries. Take your time. And hey, Jacob, great to see you in the audience here. Awesome. Catherine, great to see you as well. Lots of familiar faces here today. Lots of familiar faces. And then let's go back to the poll. So it looks like for that UX experience, 7 out of 10 took the lead. with twos, fives, and eights to follow. So it looks like it's more of a intermediate to advanced audience here. Let's say intermediate. That seems the safest bet.
Hey, Stefan, I have
Yes.
to authorize screen sharing, it says.
Oh, let's
Please
see.
refer,
Let's see.
please refer to this article of our documentation to fix the issue. Or should I move over to Chrome? Is that an issue with
Yeah,
Firefox?
it could be a Firefox thing. Not a problem. If you'd like, you can move over to Chrome. It's not a problem.
Okay, then give me a sec.
Take your time. No rush at all, Cornell. No
Okay, okay.
rush. Take your time. I'll be here. We have Celia here. Hi, Cornel. I'm so happy to see UX and XR. Woo!
Great.
Awesome. Perfect. And we've got Sunak from New York. Hello, Sunak. Great to see you. So I'd love to ask the audience here today, who is applying UX in XR? I'm interested to see how many people are in the XR space currently. Could be a lot of UX people interested in XR, but how many people are actually in XR? Hey, Christine from England, welcome, welcome. And we've got Alexander, I am, okay. Louise trying to be, okay, okay. It's a good start, good start. Hamid, I am as well, perfect. Oh, that's Sunak starting to apply. Hamid, Atlal, great to see you, Atlal, I am as well. Farzana, hey, getting there. Fabio, hi from Italy. Perfect. Just learning right now. Awesome. Well, with this, I'm going to toss in a poll here just to gauge the experience, not the experience, but more so your interests here. And Alexander, no worries. I'm going to toss in a poll. I'm curious to know, what industry are you interested in? So I'm going to toss in the poll, publishing the poll right now. Feel free to go to the polls tab as Cornel switches his browsers here. Some restrictions with Firefox. But let me know. I'm going to go to the polls tab. What industry are you interested in potentially applying UX to XR? It looks like we've got obviously design, UI, UX, education, other. For those who said other, let me know what industry that would be. Curious to know. Gaming, medical, healthcare. Hey, Cornell, great seeing you again. Take your time.
Okay.
Hopefully the screen sharing works. But no rush at all. So let's see. We've got Celia All, Farzana, Health and Ed Tech, Sayali, Healthcare and Lab Tech, Gina, currently in entertainment, Liz, VR language training. Interesting. Celia, I work in UX, UI, and XR in many fields. Zlata, FinTech, James. Hello, James. Welcome. Belinda Darcy, other healthcare. I missed it. Social, good comms, sports, entertainment, applying to e-learning, gaming, and VR language learning. Awesome. Very interested. Very interesting. So lots of interesting stuff going on in the chat here. If you do have specific questions for Cornel around UX, toss them into the questions tab. That really helps us track things a little bit better as well. But there it is. Awesome. It looks like that the screen sharing worked. Cornel, you yourself are not on stage at the moment, so feel free to hop on stage. The screen sharing does work, luckily. So thumbs up. We got it figured out. Awesome. Sometimes Firefox can be a little off. Liz, Stefan, how long is this session? Great question. Cornell's going to take about 45 minutes or so with his piece. I'll rejoin, 5-minute conclusion. We'll open it up for Q&A. So I'm going to say probably another hour or so to be safe. Depends on the Q&A session. This is all recorded, Liz, as well. So if by chance you do need to hop off, not a problem at all. It's no worries. But let's see what else we've got here. Fina for restaurant hospitality. Awesome. So yeah, Cornel, the screen sharing works. You aren't on stage just yet, but no worries at all. There it is. There, yeah, you're on stage now. Woo!
Okay.
We got it.
I'm just getting a warning here. Let me hold on a second. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yep, we can hear you and see you well. Yep, not a problem.
Oh, okay. Let me go full screen here. All right, so everything is okay?
Everything's
Okay.
good. Well, I'll hop off now here. Everyone, you're in great hands with Cornel. Cornel, if anything else comes up, let us know. I'll hop in. But
Okay.
I'll rejoin as soon as you wrap up. Just let me know, and then I'll be back.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. So thanks. Sorry about this, like all the browser mess, but no, we are happening. So first of all, let me introduce my books. My first book, Unreal for Mobile and Standalone VR, came out in 2019, and that is really a hands-on book. A hands-on book how to build VR apps from scratch. Basically, it's a very technical book. It shows you how to really start with a blank canvas and use the blueprint visual scripting to build applications, to build interactions, and not using any frameworks or any helpers. And it also includes the art pipeline and basically everything you need to know for VR on standalone VR applications for Unreal. And my last book, UX for XR, which came out 2021, so this year in June, is a different book. It basically takes a step back and looks at the bigger picture of UX, the challenges of developing XR applications from a UX perspective. And when we talk about UX for XR, I mean, there are different angles to look at it. So this is a design thinking book. And design thinking is very similar to UX design, as you guys probably know. And design thinking looks at stuff more on a strategic level. So basically, the bigger concepts, the strategic thinking behind it. And but of course, it also includes UX design, the UX design process. But very often people get confused about, design thinking, UX design, the whole UX design process in a sense of product design, basically looking at designing a product. And then there is UX UI design. And very often when you see, like, for example, when you see ads like job ads for UX job ads for XR or for gaming, they're very often for UX UI jobs, because traditionally that's where all the jobs have been, basically tweaking interfaces and this. But this is now shifting because UX has been such a huge success in the mobile and web economy. I mean, the last decade has been a huge success story for UX, for the UX design process for mobile and web mobile and web development. So, and we're now trying to bring this formula to XR to basically look at what made this huge success possible, in the mobile and web economy, and see how we can apply these techniques in XR, And so that's what my book is about. It looks at the processes and looks at how can we take what is super successful for mobile and web stuff, how can we take that stuff and apply that to XR? So what approach can we take? Because so far, traditionally, XR has lived in the game development world. And game development has always been a bit different, Game development has not necessarily been very UX heavy, because game design in general is a different animal, because game design, gamers are a special crowd, gamers are very vocal, they let you know if they don't like something. And it's also that the game industry as such is very unique. Games are very often genre driven, so people know exactly what user expectations are like. And so, the game design or the game industry and the whole game design world has been a very special. But since now we are moving outside of gaming, and we are moving into the general applications for users outside of gaming. Look at education, look at healthcare, look at all sorts of applications. For industrial or for corporate or any use cases outside of gaming. The more we look outside of gaming, the more we need UX, because we are facing users that are not vocal, that where we have, a lot of concerns about sensitivities and accessibility, and a lot of things that are not not super important in gaming, And so my book talks about all these issues. Let me actually pull up the books real quick here to go over that. So my book, Unreal for Mobile and Standalone XR, I have a few bookmarks here. So the book goes over texturing, how to do textures, how to do actually the photogrammetry workflow. It goes over the principles of object-oriented programming, what that means for your mindset. Very often it's important to get into the mindset of object-oriented thinking. And later on, I will talk a bit about object-oriented UX, which is a very specialized method for UX, which I find extremely useful for XR. So I'm later going to go into that. It's also covered in my book. But in general, object-oriented thinking is very helpful. And so in my first book, it's more a technical book where I go over these things, but it's also about setting up all your components with visual scripting. So I'm just going to click through this real quick. How to create materials, for example, here a teleport material, and how to create the interactions. It also goes over the Substance Designer workflow to create the materials for the environments, and how to interact with objects through widgets, and how to create a whole interactive scene. And it also has a little puzzle game. So it has a little tutorial how to build a puzzle game, which has a fixed slot inventory system where you have to find keys and unlock doors and these kind of things. So it's a little puzzle, and that's all part of the tutorial, and how to build an inventory and these kind of things, and how the key gets activated, how the bomb gets blown off, and then how my tool pipeline works, where I use Aikitsu for animation, for example, and then I go over the blueprint animation process in Unreal, and the AI system in Unreal called Behavior Tree, which is very powerful. It can get super complex, but I just look at it at the very basic level. Then all the different blueprints for here's a death trigger, for example, how to set up a health bar, and then I go over some old school tricks like blob shadows. I go over optimization, how to create console widgets, and RenderDoc integration. RenderDoc is a very powerful tool for optimization. And then I give an outlook over what the future holds for social VR and so forth, and productivity. So that was from 2019. I started in 2018. And then my latest book, let me pull it up here real quick. UX for XR. In that book, I go over the principles. I cover, for example, gamification, the gamification pipeline, what the elements are that make gamification work. And I go over the VR conventions, heuristics. So basically, what has been established to work. And I go over the issues that you're facing as a XR designer. For example, I call that being a full stack XR designer. You actually have a lot of on your plate. Basically, you have You need to know visual scripting. You need to deal with 3D objects. So it's a lot of stuff you have to deal with, but it's also a very rewarding, career. And then I talk about the specific issues that we can address in XR. For example, using traditional UX methods like the empathy map. So how would the empathy map, that, for example, that is a useful tool in traditional UX, how can we apply that in XR? And I go over the process, the UX design process, how it applies in XR, what the double diamond. You guys have probably heard about the double diamond. How can we use the principles of the double diamond in XR? What does it mean for XR? And then I have my own method, which I call reality UX, where I call it XR mapping, where I use object-oriented UX. And it's basically happens between the two diamonds, basically how we map the objects that we're facing in XR, how do we map them out. And then I go over some tools, techniques, for example, using spatial storytelling with Adobe Aero. I go over, AR tools, Spark, and there's a link to the Oculus Quest, which I find quite fun. You get a link, the Spark AR app to the Oculus Quest to test it in the Quest. I find that super fun. And then I go over the frameworks. I use, as you may have noticed, I use Unreal, but the book is platform agnostic, so it's on Unity, Unreal, whatever. And the framework I use is the advanced framework for VR. But there are, of course, there are other frameworks. For example, on Unity, I like the VR interaction framework by what's the company called? It's Bearded Ninja Games, I think it is. And then there's I go over the MRTK, which is the tools the toolkit for the HoloLens. Which can also be tested on the Quest, which I love, and I think it's one of the best tool sets for mixed reality and AR. It's very intuitive, it's very rich. You have a lot of modules. It's very well documented, and there's even a Figma preset. And so then I go over the whole process using personas, using a user journey, defining touch points. Using object-oriented UX, which I'll explain later. And I have an example project. And then later I talk in general about the outlook on XR from my observations. And I also invited people in my book. When I wrote the book, I talked to a lot of people in the industry and had interviews with people from all sorts of industry, what their expectations are, and developers, game designers, UX designers, and enterprise people, what they thought, what they would expect from XR, because we're at the brink of a new era, and now we are basically in metaverse hysteria territory, and so basically it's the things are really taking off at the moment. And it's a very exciting time. So let me go back to my presentation here. Okay, so a quick intro to what I do. I have a business in Singapore called Studio CG Artist, and I do 3D visualization, CG art, and animation, and XR design. And so my background basically is more in visualization. I've done a lot of visualization projects before VR, architectural visualization and product visualizations. And there was a natural transition for me to go from 3D visualization into VR. In the beginning, I offered that to my clients as an add-on. In the beginning as a free add-on, and then people started to like it, and then I started charging for it. And So basically, that's now the main thing I do. But I also on the side I do sometimes animation stuff, sometimes 2D animation for NGOs and that kind of thing. And I love doing like 3D stuff, creating assets. And so on today's agenda, I want to talk. I have a mock-up project which I want to go through, and so I want to talk about the whole thing. So how to go through it from step by step, basically. But that is my personal workflow. So that is my personal workflow. It's not in the book. Other people may do it differently. Everyone has their own method of doing things, and their own little tricks and tools and their secret weapons and these kind of things. So I have my own way of doing things. You may have your own ways. So everyone has their own ways of doing things. So my book is, platform and tools agnostic, but this is like my way of doing things. And I want to focus a bit on prototyping, because prototyping is a big issue in XR. Because if you look at, UX in mobile and web, it's such a smooth process. It's such a wonderful, process going from low fidelity to mid fidelity to high fidelity. Is so fluid, so smooth. And it's such a mature, industry, such a mature ecosystem with specialized, providers and all these kind of things. We don't have that in XR. We don't have it. In XR, the industry is building right now. So we have to define these things. We have to find solutions. And so prototyping is one of the big issues, because it's not easy to do. Prototyping is not easy to do. And we have to find solutions depending on the project and the client, on the stakeholders, what suits them best. That's the thing. And then I'm going to talk about UX considerations in general, and I'll do a little process recap, and then I'm gonna go a little bit hands-on. Not too much, just show a little bit what I do there. And actually, I decided to do it in reverse, to start with Unreal and then go backwards, because Unreal is so resource hungry and it always takes so long to start up and stuff. And then I go backwards to Twinmotion and then Blender, and show it this way. So going backwards, basically. And just in general about Unreal and Unity, I think you guys are mostly Unity, I think, and which is great. Unity is awesome. And Unity is amazing. It has like this super cool ecosystem of all these solutions. It's fantastic. And in the end, the principles are the same for Unreal and Unity. It's basically you just have to find the right tools, the right framework. So in my book, I talk about what the big deal is about XR design. I think it's two big things. It's frameworks and visual scripting. For a designer, if you're not a coder, if you're not a developer, if you're a developer, whatever, then you do C#, you code everything, it's no issue. But as a designer, you want to focus on design. You don't want to code all day, right? So, basically, we need solutions for that, and visual scripting is a solution. And in Unity, you guys have Bold. Bold is awesome, and Bold is pretty new. I mean, it was bought by Unity, and I think that was a great move because it's an awesome tool. And it will be more and more integrated, and it's going to be amazing. In Unreal, we have blueprints, which the advantage is that Unreal was built up from the beginning using blueprints, and that's why it's super powerful. So you can do everything you can ever imagine you can do with blueprints. It's super amazing. And so in general, Unreal, Unity, the principles are the same. That's why I'm not going to go too deep into technical things. I'm going to show a little bit how things are done in Unreal, because it may be interesting for you guys to see, the differences, how things are put together. And but I'm not going to spend too much technical time, so otherwise it's going to get boring for you guys. So I want to introduce a project that I came up with, and it's it's a mock-up of a patient communication clinic called Medical Hub, and the application is supposed to be for patient communication. The background of the project is that I actually sometimes work with a company here in Singapore that does a lot of jobs for SMEs, small and medium enterprises, and they have a lot of clinics as their clients. And we do a lot of workshops together, and sometimes do consulting for them. And so, they recently, a while back, they did a project for a private clinic here, because Singapore is also like a medical hub where people, a medical destination. People travel to Singapore to get procedures done because it's a trustworthy place. People trust the institutions here. And there was a small private clinic, and they wanted a VR application for a procedure, and just a very simple application to show their patients what they can expect from the procedure, to introduce them to what needs to be done, and the reason to do that was to make them feel comfortable, to offer the patient something special, so they feel, wow, this place is awesome. They show me all these things. I feel safe. I feel comfortable. I'm booking this place basically. So that's the thing. You want to help patients to feel safe, comfortable. And so this mock-up project here, it's just a tiny project, just to show in a mock-up. So I consider this to be a bigger project, and I take one segment out, basically, which you can see on the right, the MH prototype, the MRI Explorer section, because that's also very typical. I very often do that. If I have a bigger project, I take a section out, and that gets prototyped, because people want to see, hey, is this the right thing that we're doing here? Let's take one piece out and prototype and see, what if that works at all. What we have in mind here, or do we have to change the whole, information architecture, So anyway, so here you can see it's medical education, why patient communication, who is for patients, and where it's on location. So this is one of the projects that people never get to see. How are we in time? Oh shit. Anyway, so this is one of the things that people never get to see because it's very private. It's in hospitals. And before I go into more details, so I want to share a bit some considerations about best practices. In my book, I talk about like the gold standard for XR VR is basically a Half-Life Alyx, because that is the best VR title. It's Valve has done so much research. It's one of the companies that really helped to bring VR to where it is today. And, they put so much money into research and into usability and these kind of things. So that's why Alyx is the gold standard. It's the best VR game ever. And, in terms of accessibility, locomotion options, interaction options, customization. So every XR designer should look at Alyx to see what a great VR game looks like, and it's a beautiful game. It's beautifully designed, and it's something to that sets the bar. That's what it is. So in terms of locomotion, when you talk about education, very often it's let me check. Am I on time here? Okay, let me check real quick. Okay. So basically, in terms of locomotion, okay, you guys still hear me? Hey, you guys still hear me? Is everything okay? Okay.
Hey, yeah, everything's all good, Cornel. Yeah, everyone's saying yes.
Okay. You guys hear me? I like.
Yep.
Because okay.
Hear us? Perfect. Yeah, everything's good.
I just wanted to check on the time. So are we fine on time?
We're fine. Yeah. No rush at all. No worries. I'm sure everyone's loving everything here.
Okay, cool. So in terms of locomotion, I just wanted to quickly talk about the special case of educational apps, because very often you have the decision. You have to make a decision between free roaming and on rails locomotion. On rails locomotion means you move from hotspot to hotspot. Basically, you have a hotspot, you have a bunch of tasks, and once you're done with the tasks, you get unlocked for the next hotspot, and then you automatically move to the next hotspot, and then you have to do your tasks. And once the tasks are unlocked, then you move to the next hotspot. So very often that's a great solution for educational apps, especially for unexperienced users or non-gamers. But sometimes if you're targeting people who are tech savvy, who are gamers, who may have VR experience, then free roaming is better because you can explore, you can have explorational experiences. So I decided to do more exploration and to have free roaming. In terms of UI, diegetic versus non-diegetic, spatial or meta. So diegetic is when your UI lives in the gaming world. That means, for example, if you have a clock, you don't want the clock in your heads-up display. You want it. In VR you can have a real clock that sits on a table. So that's diegetic. So it's an object that lives in the game world. So that's always the preferred way to show things in VR. And so that should always be considered. User comfort, options are key. For example, locomotion, if you have the choice between teleportation or smooth locomotion. Some people hate, teleportation. Other people, can't deal with smooth locomotion. That's why we need options. Very simple as that. User guidance, onboarding is super important. Have in the beginning show like what's the controller assignments. So where's what, where are the buttons, where's the help button. You have tutorials that are skippable. These kind of things. One low-hanging fruit in VR is actually audio. Because audio can do so much in VR, and it's very easy to implement. For example, narration, or you can have, spatial audio to guide a user. You can have a noise behind the ear, and to make the user turn around. So you can do a lot of stuff with audio, and it's pretty easy to implement in VR, and it's not very performance hungry. So it's not very expensive. And platform consider performance targets early on, so that's if the application is going to end up on the Quest, you should have an eye on polygon counts on your draw calls. I think at the moment the Quest has the recommended maximum of 175,000 draw calls, I think. And you have to think about this. Draw calls is everything. Like a draw call, a texture is a draw call. Like if you have an object with 3 textures, those are 3 draw calls. So be mindful of that. And in terms of interaction, affordances versus signifiers. So consider real-world affordances enhanced with signifiers. That means very often frameworks have that already built in. So basically, when you hover over an item, it gets highlighted. So that basically gives you a signifier that an object that has an affordance, the signifier tells you, okay, this is it. I can grab this. I can do something with it. So basically, talking about the design process. So starting at the bottom, empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test. That's the classic UX design process. So, in the beginning, we have the design brief. We have what needs to be solved. What's the problem we need to solve? What do we do? Then we do research. We talk to stakeholders, to patients. We talk to the user. What do they worry about? What problems are they facing? Then we are defining an information architecture. We do, we say like how many rooms are there? What interactive objects are in these rooms? Then, we start ideation and storyboarding. And once we're done with that, we start prototyping. And And then the most important thing is we go to the testing where we get feedback. And with the feedback, of course, we, once we hear the feedback, we say, oh, okay, people didn't find this one item. They were interacting with this other thing, but they couldn't find the other thing. So we have to make sure to point the user towards that. So that's what testing is for. And the testing is super important. And, these kind of things have been done in game development too, but different, In game development, people used to do more focus group tests, of course, but not integrated into this whole UX design process. So in my book, I have a case study, which is, it's just a coincidence that we at the moment have this huge crypto and NFT hype. I didn't know that when I was writing the book, so it was that it would explode like this. So anyway, so basically it's an NFT gallery for VR, and I'm using the object-oriented UX design process. And what I do here is I define a user journey. We define the user journey. What are the touch points? What's the call to action on the touch point? Then in the object-oriented UX, we look at identifying objects from the user journey. So objects are basically nouns. So we have a room, we have a piece of artwork, we have a button. So what does this button do? What is it for? How is it in relationship to the artwork? What's the artwork's relationship to the room? So we build relationships between objects. And then we have, once we have done with that, we create a storyboard. We prototype that using an XR framework, and then we do the testing. That is in the book, a case study. And as I mentioned earlier, the big challenge is prototyping, because prototyping is not as easy as for web or mobile apps, where you can just hop into Figma and toss out a few wireframes and go from wireframes to high fidelity in a day. So that wouldn't usually doesn't work in XR. So we have to break XR prototyping very often down into what is important to mostly the stakeholders. So very often I break it down into UI testing, ideation impression testing, environment testing, and interaction testing, high fidelity. What that means is very often, stakeholders, clients are very picky about their UI. They have a design system. They have a brand. They're very sensitive about the continuity of their design across all the media channels. They want consistency. So this has to line up with their design system. So that's why it's super sensitive, and that has to be tested separately. And ideation and impression testing shows things that you throw out ideas and see how what a room could look like as a spatial layout. And environment testing shows you what environment details we have. And interaction testing uses frameworks and shows the interaction. So basically, what I do, I use Figma very often for UI interaction, because very often we're dealing with screens. I know if you guys listen to the Facebook Connect, the last one, the Carmack talk. So Carmack, John Carmack, the legendary developer, he was talking about screens in VR, and he said, we have to get screens right. And I think he nailed it. That's so important to get screens right in VR, and that's why we need to test screens separately. So what I very often do, if I have a screen, so I test it in Figma and verify it with the stakeholders to see, hey, is this what you guys want to see? Then I do impression testing very often with tools like Shapes XR, which is pretty new, where you show things in context. You throw in a few objects and get impression to show your stakeholders, hey, is this going to work? Do you like it? Then environment testing. I personally like Twinmotion for that. Twinmotion is very often used for architectural visualization, and it integrates very well with the Unreal Engine. That's why I love it. It's very easy. It's very user-friendly. It's very forgiving, and it actually we can throw it out on the cloud. So you can stream it. It's just a one-button solution. You push it on the cloud, and it streams from a cloud GPU. And that was very helpful during the pandemic to do that. And then for interaction testing, I use a framework. I use the advanced framework for VR using blueprints. So I break my prototyping up into different segments that are easy to manage, And as I said earlier, UX considerations, if you do non-gaming, it's super important to do your research and find out who's your user, what does your user, what is his worry, what is his concern, what does he want, what does he worry about, and you do that with empathy testing. It's an established technique, and it works really well in XR as well. And so then, once we've done all that, we go into storyboarding. And typically, what I do is I do a verbal storyboard. I basically run down. So what do we have? We have a reception room. So we come into the room. There's interactive objects for exploration, because I want the interactive objects to make it playful. The user should relax. They should pick things up and be happy. They should not be stressed out. So they should have something to play with, something to cheer them up in the beginning. And so that is basically the segment we're dealing with. Usually, if it's a whole game, the whole project, it would have had the onboarding, of course, in the very beginning. In this segment, it starts with the reception room. Then we have the reception desk interaction. My voice. With that, we have the reception desk where we have a menu, and the menu explains what to do here, how to go around, what we have available here in this room, and what's in the next room. We have the MRI Explorer, the magnetic resonance imaging for brain scans, and so we introduce that here. So then we have the doors. So basically, the user has to proceed to the next room, has to deal with the door, has to open it. It has to be a nice experience. Otherwise, people are never going to make it to the next room. And then in the MRI room, there's another, there's objects to explore. And then we have another wall menu where we can explore the MRIs, and they're demonstrated on an object. And so basically, in summary, the design process is we're going from the brief, create a patient information experience, discovery, shareholder user interviews, exploration, context, market, product research. So we look at what other are we doing well? Are we okay on time? I hope so. So we look at what other products are there? What is there? Other people are doing the same thing. We need to compare. We need to do market research. We do the empathy map. So what is the user? We have the data from the research. We want to map it. Then we do a persona creation. So we want to target a user. We want to what's his profile, what's his bio, what are his aspirations. Then we create the user journey, and we have a user story. As a patient, I want to learn more about the diagnosis and treatment of my condition, so I can make the right decision, that I feel safe and have to worry less. So that's the user story. And then we go into OOUX. So OOUX is a special field, which I'm not going to cover today so much. There's great resources on the web. I share the link later. But the object discovery is especially useful if you have a very complex project with a lot of things. If you want to bring order into chaos, if you want to structure a complex if you want a structural complexity, then OOUX is very helpful. And we have the verbal storyboard, the visual storyboard. We do the prototyping, as I explained, Twinmotion, Figma, Unreal, AVR. We do the testing with users, ask them questions. Hey, what do you? So go from there to there and see what they do, and then we find out, oh man, this doesn't work. You know, he didn't know what to do with this thing, so we have to change it. So so basically, the prototyping design, the prototyping process is part of the design process: research, exploration, creation, validation, iteration. So in this project I have here, it's basically, you know, we have the reception room, and as I explained earlier, before I do anything, I verify the UIs that are in the room. I verify them with the stakeholders using Figma. You know, just do the 2D menus, make them work, make them look good, see, you know, make them consistent with their brand, and then have them test it and see if that works. And then I go into Blender and I do asset creation. So in this case, I have like this model with a brain that I want to show. I have the room, and actually I'm going to show later in Blender, I have a tool called Architect Pro, which is a parametric architecture tool, which is very user-friendly. It's very easy to change doors, to, you know, change windows, change position. So if you have changes, you can always go back and make easy changes. And so that's a big deal, because you have very often you find out, man, the window is too high, it's too low, these kind of things. And then in my project, I have you know, the exploration of the MRI Explorer. We have the brain model, I have the MRI machine, and I want the user to explore that. And so I basically in Unreal, what I do is I take my concepts that I built in Figma, and I take them into Unreal and I rebuild them in Unreal. So I use them as a template and kind of rebuild the user interface, the basics, because not all, of course, you cannot do everything in Figma. Like, for example, 3D interactions, obviously you cannot do in Figma. Yeah, but the visual language you can do in Figma. And then I rebuild them in Unreal, the buttons, the button behaviors, what happens when you press a button. And then I take it, you know, and then I implement all the stuff in the framework. So in Unreal, the framework that I'm using, the advanced framework for Unreal, is based on a component concept. So you have your actor, you have your pawn, and the pawn has components, and the actor has components, and the controllers are also objects that have components. So all these, I mean, actors. So all these items are actors. The pawn is actually an actor. The objects you're interacting with an actor, and all these actors have their components, and you're interacting with these components. And the map info, you're setting what you know, what pawn actor you're actually using and what abilities he has. So later on, I'll share my links to all these things. And let me actually, okay, close this real quick. So, and let me go into Unreal. Oh, actually, I wanted to show a video first. My voice, I'm losing my voice. Okay, let's see. So I went through the stages. You know, I went from Blender, Figma, Twinmotion, built my assets, built my room, put it into Unreal, rebuilding. So I'm trying to rebuild the UI, so the widgets, the menu interaction. So, and that's shown here. In the video, you will see how. So that stage, I'm at that stage where I basically have two menus. One is my template from Figma. The other one is the one I'm rebuilding. So I already have my framework set up. So I have to test my controller interaction, if everything's working, if the locomotion is working, if the teleportation is working, and then I have to see if it works, if the object interaction is working. And then on the left-hand side, you see my Figma template, and on the right hand is my object that I'm trying to recreate, and then I'm just testing an object that I set up as interactive to see if it works, if I can use this cup. Too bad it doesn't have any fluids. Would be super cool if the coffee would be all over the place. That's next level, next UI, Unreal 6, I think. Now, maybe Unreal 5, who knows. But anyways, so that's that. And then, here's the interface that I'm rebuilding using the Figma template, and I'm building the button behavior and what the buttons do and what kind of information is called up. And so I'm using that with the Unreal UMG tools, which are great. And I only have one button head now. I have to create the other 3 buttons. And right now I have it on a flip-flop, so it always flips back and forth. I usually do that during testing because it's easy to use. And then I now need to proceed to the next room. And in the next room, to get to the next room, there one button would tell you that, please proceed to the next room to explore the MRI Explorer. Then I can grab the doorknob and open the door. And then I'm in this room, so that's the other menu for reference. In this room, I have a few things that are interactive. I have the TV on the wall TV. I would later show a video there that can be activated. I have other objects that will later be interactive. And then the most important thing is the MRI Explorer and the brain model. So I'm going to close in, and I'm going to activate the MRI Explorer to show the position of the MRI on the brain model. So that's the idea behind it. So basically to activate a view and show that on the brain model. So basically click on that view number 1. So that's the MRI scan, and show that position on the brain model. So the idea of that is that later on, so first you would have the basic intersections, horizontal, vertical. And the cool thing about this is the subject here is a pituitary tumor, which is always at the same location. That's why it's super easy. It is always the same issues. This issue is always the eye nerve, that it touches the eye nerves. So it's very easy to target and very easy to explain. So the idea is to basically later have to be able to load all the cross sections and have the viewer, so the user can go through all the cross sections and have contextual information later, and actually highlight things in the brain model, and potentially actually bring up extra images that show, and pointers, and and to make it more educational. Another thing, what I talked about earlier about audio, it would be kind of important here to have some nice audio, some, elevator music or something, because people have anxiety, they worry. So you would try to help them to make them feel comfortable with nice music to make them relaxed. So then, basically, the doors, basically, I took the doors from the framework. So this is basically what I wanted to explain. All these items here on the desk are from Twinmotion. That's why I love Twinmotion. Twinmotion has all these nice scene dressing items where you can quickly populate a scene with all sorts of stuff, with plants, with furniture. And that's very often very important to come up with a nice environment, that you can show to your stakeholders. And so right now I did only a few things. You can put all sorts of stuff, more plans and pictures on the walls and all sorts of stuff. And so that's basically it on this part. So this is a video. And now let's have a look at Unreal. So if we look at the Unreal project here, I just wanted to quickly show how I go about it. It's basically if, so basically let me zoom out here. So basically I have, as I said earlier, I have my template here. Basically I have that here for reference, and I'm trying to rebuild the UI here. And what I do is, let me find my panels here. This is widget panel number 1. Where what I usually do is I have you see the background image is a PNG, which I brought in as a reference. And then I'm building my buttons. And in Unreal, you have this nice graph window here where you build your interactions. In Unity, you would do that with bold. Basically, what happens when you click a button, right? So on pressed widget palette button now normal, here I have a flip-flop. It goes to set visibility because I have the text element there that's hidden, and it basically makes it visible. It makes the image that was there before, makes it invisible, and it sets the text in the text area. And when I click it again, it makes it invisible again. It makes it visible again, the logo original, and then it resets the text. So this is the way I build my widgets, my UMG widgets. And we look at the other widget that I showed, the panel 2. Here's the same thing. I have the reference image, which is in background to kind of as a template, a PNG. So basically, I'm rebuilding my my interface. And same thing here. I'm building the buttons, but in this case, I have a bigger problem here because, as you saw on the brain model, I wanted to show something that's outside of the menu. So basically, you have to reference an item, a 3D objects that's in the space. So basically, you have to go in and reference an object. And that's very often not easy because you have to create a reference to another scene actor. Very often in Unreal, it's done with casting, or very often you do it with event dispatchers. In this case, I used a technique which is called call actor of class. It looks at an actor of a specific class. I called it up, and I just set the visibility. So that's with the plane that's showing. And that's what I do very often. I very often use hiding, unhiding of things. So very often when you have an educational app, it's all about hiding and unhiding. You have a lot of things that are hidden from the user. Then he clicks on a button and it unhides. Then, okay, this points here, and then click this. This is this, and it unhides, hides, unhide. So basically, hiding, unhiding is a really easy way to build educational apps, because you want to show things, you want to explain things, And how are we doing in time? Are we doing okay? So basically, I just wanted to have a few words about the framework, because when you set up your initial pawn, as I mentioned earlier, the framework works with the pawn actor and its components, and the actor, the object in the scene, right? So with its components and how you interact with them. And this framework is actually really easy to use. It's very user-friendly. So you have all these beautiful components here to use for all sorts. It's all it's all set up by the framework. You don't, in my first book, I actually wrote how to do it all by yourself. But things have really become a lot easier for you guys. I mean, if you're someone who's starting out now, you're lucky. You don't have to go through all this stuff that people had to go through like a few years ago. So it's all taken care of by the framework. You can, all the headsets are taken care of. You have Steam VR, you have the Cosmos, the Vive Cosmos, and it automatically switches between them. It's all taken care of. You even have a desktop pawn. For example, if I go into the level and I want to explore, test it without being in a headset, I can just, go walk around it without having a headset on, and I can interact with it, with my mouse. So that's super easy. Super easy to test things. And are we doing okay on time? How many minutes do we have left? I hope I'm not talking too much.
All good, Cornel. Yeah, we
are we doing okay?
Yeah, no rush at all.
Oh, okay. So basically, it's basically the same in Unity. Basically, you have your components. You give your scene actors abilities, interaction abilities, and and this way you build your application. And I just wanted to share my own technique. I wanted to go into Twinmotion real quick. So I'm going to close Unreal real quick, unless I have something else that's important. Just one thing I wanted to show real quick, how easy it is in the framework to change the interaction model. So they made it super easy, whatever, to switch between different, if you want to use hands, or if you want to if you want to have different actions on different buttons, and the trigger button, you want to have a select or you don't, it's super easy to change. I just wanted to show this real quick. But let's have a quick look at my voice at Twinmotion. Let me close this. Okay. So Twinmotion they just had a new version out, 2022 preview, which has a super nice path tracing rendering, which is super nice. It's great to render super nice previews. But for Unreal, for the interaction, for exporting stuff to Unreal, I need this version, the last of this year. And so Twinmotion, as I mentioned, is used in architectural visualization a lot. It's super user friendly. I recommend it a lot, especially for users who are new to 3D and to building 3D spaces. And it's super easy to create VR, a VR demo, because it's all integrated. It's extremely user friendly. Let me load my last file here. So in Twinmotion, what I do is okay. What I very often do is, let me see, where is it? So it's super easy to throw things into. I do that for scene dressing, and so that's my own workflow. You don't need to do it. I just love it because the reason why I love it is because it's so easy to throw objects in here. Just let me go to the living room here. I have lamps. Put on another lamp here. Move it around. You have all these beautiful assets that you can throw everywhere. And they actually recently they included a lot of super nice Quixel assets. Where is it? Like Quixel Megascans, 3D assets. If I go to baked goods, oh man, chocolate muffin. Oh yeah, I mean, think about it, like a chocolate muffin. Put it on the table there. And they have all these beautiful assets, and it's a chocolate cookie, and it's super nice it's super easy to use. Let me download this and put this here, and so that's why I love it. And the cool thing about Twinmotion is that it has a one-click solution to push it into the cloud. And during the pandemic, while I was working on stuff, it was really not easy to share things. So if you're building a scene and you want to show it to a client in Europe, and you have to kind of take screenshots, and these kind of things. It's so much nicer to be able to like push a button and like push it into the cloud, and it's already happening. So like basically, let me cancel this. Please no, don't. And then it runs on the cloud GPU, and your client can interactively explore it. And it's also super easy to. Oops, no, I can't get rid of it. Great. And it's super easy to build a VR application because it has VR built in. So basically, if I go here on this menu, you put on a VR headset, and you can actually export it as a VR application. So it's also nice. I sometimes do workshops or like one-offs for events and these kind of things, where sometimes a lot of work if you want to put everything together in Unreal, and there's always debugging and lighting issues, and you name it, there's always some problem, right? And so in Twinmotion, it's just so super smooth. You just throw everything in the scene, you arrange things. It's super chill, and then you just press export, and it's all there. Basically, it's great for events and environment presentations. So that's why I wanted to show this real quick. That's what I use for to build my environments, to test my objects, and basically to see if the scene comes together, and to get client or stakeholder feedback. And so yeah, let me close this real quick. I just wanted to show this. This has, by the way, beautiful options to do all sorts of wild things. It has weather effects. If you want to, you can like have it rain, and then as seasons, you have snow. The snow starts coming in, but I took the roof off the room. That's why it's that snows in the room. So for outdoor scenes, it's great. And it has beautiful landscaping tools if you have like lots of trees and these kind of things. And the transition into Unreal is super easy. So it's a great tool. It's a great tool for prototyping environments. So that's my secret weapon, Let me close this. Another thing I wanted to show is my Blender stuff. I wanted to show in Blender what I think is important. If you know, for example, very often when you do educational things, sometimes you can have an open world environment, which is awesome, but very often the requirement asks for rooms. You want to have because we want to have a blackboard. You want to have we have certain things, and that's why I have a thing in Blender that I use. It's called Archipack, which I think is super cool because it allows you to quickly change things. So for example, this door here, so I can basically I can go in and basically I can grab this. I can make it taller, make it wider. Damn, or I can move it around. I mean, the thing that happens most of the time to move the thing. Very often you do a prototype and it happens, man, the door is in the wrong spot, and what now? You have to go back and rebuild the whole thing. It's sometimes very troublesome. And that's why I do it in Blender with Archipack. It's, you just move it over. It's no problem, right? Make it a little wider. These are parametric items. And, someone said, hey, we need a window in there. It's very easy. You just select the whole thing. Let me see, where's the, you grab, you see where's the windows. Say, okay, I want a nice window here. Okay, let me grab this one, put it here, put another one here, done. And, the cool thing is these are parametric, as I mentioned, they can easily be moved. They can, you can do all sorts of wild things with them. You can, change all sorts of, parametrics. And that's why I love it, so that's my other secret weapon, because rooms, in spatial design and XR, you very often have to deal with rooms. You have to deal with rooms, and very often you have to deal with changes. And you have a room, and that needs to be changed constantly. So you need a solution for that. I mean, the other solution is, of course, to do modeling in the engine, which is also great. Unity has tools for that. Unreal does, but they're not as powerful as real modeling tools. That's the thing. Like Blender has really powerful modeling tools. You can solve any problem that whatever ever comes up. And so that really brings me to the end here. I think I'm pretty much covered it all. So are we doing fine?
We're doing fine. Is that it for your end, Cornel? Before we dive into the Q&A session,
say what?
Is that it for the presentation for the
moment? Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Cornel, thank you so much for showing us all of these great tools, your thoughts, insights, approaches to all of this. Very, very helpful. Lots of great feedback in the chat there. Thank you so much, Cornel. Now, for those who are still tuned into this workshop and webinar, I'm going to toss in a poll here. And the poll is going to ask, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this workshop to others? It helps myself, the team, Cornel know, should we continue hosting these workshops and webinars? Was it of value? Really helps us a lot. 0, you wouldn't tell anyone. 10, you would recommend this to others. So feel free to go to the polls tab. Let us know. I'm going to take 5 minutes here to wrap things up. Then we're going to get into the Q&A session here. I saw a lot of great questions in the questions tab. I'm going to share my screen quickly. I'm going to take 5 minutes to wrap things up, and then we'll get into the Q&A session here. And Cornel, thank you again, the man, the myth, the legend. Really, really appreciate everything. Thanks. And the value you're sharing.
My voice was kind of failing me.
It's been a long day for you, right? It's like
it's been a long day, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, Cornel. For those of you who are interested in getting into XR, we would love to have you with us. We have students joining us from all walks of life, getting in with different companies, starting their own companies, joining Unity, learning towards Unreal, becoming designers and developers themselves in this space. We would love to have you with us. Now, we do have our Introduction to Unity 3D course. This is a project-based 8-week program, live and online, walks you through Unity, creating your first real-time 3D application. And this course will help you prepare to earn a Unity certified certificate. Now, we do also have, this one's for the developers out there. I know the audience are more designers, but we have our XR Development with Unity course. This is also all live and online, project-based, beginner-friendly, learning how to use Unity, C# coding to develop your own projects from scratch as well. Now, for the designers out there, we have our Interaction Design and Prototyping for XR course. This one goes into UX for XR, designing and prototyping experiences, web and mobile apps. Again, 2 classes per week, an hour and a half each class, 10 weeks long, live and online, project-based as well. So if you're interested in checking any of those courses out, Dan will share the links in the chat, and you can check out the website as well. And this is just a little snippet of some of the storyboarding some students have been doing in our programs and things that Cornel had actually also touched on during his presentation as well. So with this, again, for those who are interested in Unity in general, not specific to VR, AR, we have the Unity 3D development course, which will earn you the certified user certificate. The XR development will get you a XR developer badge and the certified associate programmer from Unity. And the XR interaction design and prototyping course will get you the XR designer badge. Now, I love our community, lots of different channels of support, office hours every single day for additional support, events like coffee hours, show and tells, demo days, game jams, you name it. Great way to network and collaborate with like-minded professionals, learning and upskilling in this industry. And for those of you interested, we do have a Black Friday deal currently live until the end of the month. So if you're interested in any of the deals, feel free to reach out. Our team would love to speak to you more about this. Our starter packs are at 30% off. Those are the standalone courses and programs we offer. And then we have our plus packages as well at 30% off, which includes a 10-week course and program of your choosing, a 4-week C# scripting course, an Oculus Quest 2 headset, and 10 hours of one-on-one sessions with our experts. Now, for the Unity 3D course, this is at 50% off until the end of the month. So if you're interested in checking it out, feel free to reach out there as well. We do offer financing, flexible payment plans from 3 months, 6 months, and even monthly 12 months if anyone's interested. And there's no experience required. So beginners, have no fear. We welcome everyone from all walks of life. Anyone can get into it with some work as well. You need a Mac or a Windows computer that's Unity compatible. Windows tend to be better tailored than Macs due to GPUs. And then Android or iPhone VR devices recommended but not required as well. So any of our admission team members would love to speak to you more about our courses and programs there. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Feel free to download a syllabus or apply now at any of these following websites and links there. And with that, let's get into the Q&A session because I did see a lot of questions in the questions tab there. Cornel, let us know how you are on time. I know it's quite late for you in Singapore.
I'm fine. I'm fine. No problem.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, with this, let me just close the screen here. And we'll get to the questions. So I'm going to go from oldest to newest here. And first one here for you, Cornel, is from Steve. So the question will pop up on the screen in front of you if you're interested in checking it out. But Steve is asking, with the growth and ever-changing environment that XR is experiencing, are your books written in a way to be evergreen or relevant throughout these changes?
That's a very good question because that was one of my biggest concerns, I mean, with such a rapidly changing industry, where basically, you have news on a daily basis, basically. I follow all the VR news. There's every day you have some new stuff, some changes. So that's why I spend a lot of time into looking at stuff that are persistent, that will be there for a long time, and also stuff that's timeless. Like for example, UX principles and stuff. These are principles that are timeless. No matter how the industry evolves, these are timeless principles to design meaningful applications. And but of course, looking at all the technology stuff, there's going to be a point where maybe in a year or whatever, the book will probably need an update or something. Who knows when Apple comes out with their headset, these kind of things.
Yeah.
But so far, it's everything. Everything is timely. There's nothing is outdated in the book. It's all good.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, great question. Thank you for the insight there, Cornel. Now I'm going to go through most upvoted ones just to get those done with. This one is from Rachel, and Rachel was wondering, which traditional UX methodologies or approaches really don't work for XR projects, and why?
Good question. So I would almost say like none of them, except for OOUX. That's my opinion. So most UX methods are really fine-tuned for mobile and web, because it's all about wireframing. So it's basically the rush to UI. That's the problem. Basically the rush to UI means you wireframe and then you go to lo-fi high fidelity, and then you're done, basically, which we cannot do that in XR. That's the biggest problem, and that's why these things that work so well for mobile and web don't apply for XR, and that's the biggest headache we have. And I believe that object-oriented UX, which is a method that was developed by Sophia Prater. She is the evangelist of object-oriented UX. And she is actually not an XR. I mean, she is not. Her focus is not in XR, but her method is so meta. It works on such an abstraction level that it covers XR really well. If you look at your environment in terms of objects instead of processes, basically you look at, like we look at humans, we look at objects, and when we look around, we look at a doorknob, and we look at the attributes, the call to actions, and we look at the classical UX principles that apply on these objects. So that's my take. Of course, you can use still traditional UX methods and kind of like work around that prototyping problem, in terms when you, for example, have a developer on your hand who is fine with when you can hand it over at an early stage or something, or if you're a very good coder, then it's also no problem,
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Awesome. Great question, Rachel. Thank you as well, Cornel. This one is from Nancy, and Nancy's wondering, how do you approach bringing a brand's style guide into VR?
Yeah, that's a big problem, because, and it is it's a topic that frequently comes up, because very often when you have a new technology that takes off, there's a lot of chaos and people do all sorts of wild things. But then once the dust settles, people want consistency. They want brand consistency across media channels. So very often brands, they have design systems, and design systems starts with the UI, It starts with UI interactions. That's why I took the example of my project here, because that's very typical, Very often the brand is reflected in the menu interaction. That's where you can reflect the brand the best, the easiest, because then you can have your brand icon, you can bring the typical stuff that you have on your mobile app or from your web app, you can bring that into the menu interaction. Then you can have a brand presence there. And then from there, you can take it into the environment. But But I think that's a very important thing to consider, and that's a very good question because it's super important.
Agreed. No, great question as well, Nancy. Another one here for Cornell. Liz is wondering, what are the most critical UI considerations we should follow for designing for non-gamer first-time VR users?
Well, that's a very good question. That's a big problem because, as I mentioned before, VR applications used to be built from a game design mindset, and game designers always make assumptions about their users. They think they know, who their users are. They think, oh, I know my people. And very often that's true. You have a genre gamers. You know what they expect. So you have it's easy, and if they don't like it, they're very very vocal, as I said. But in XR for non-gamers, it's the most crucial part is the testing, and the testing is not easy for non-gamers because in XR it's very difficult to get a nuanced feedback from users, because when you take a non-gamer, or let's take this example I had here with a patient you take a patient that's not a gamer, and maybe it's even not a VR person, these people are going, oh my gosh, this is VR, this is so amazing, it's like really difficult to get a nuanced opinion about the content, so I also write about that in my book. That's why it's very important to make the right picks for your testers. You have to have people who are very who are above, you're beyond that stage, who are familiar with VR. And for non-gamers, it's important. The testing is super important, and as I mentioned earlier, you need to consider locomotion options, because what happens very often is that people just get lost. They don't know. They're not very familiar with buttons. They press the wrong button and they end up somewhere they don't know what to do. So the onboarding, you have to explain people. It has to be clear that there's a help button where you can fire up the help instructions. So because that's a problem that non-gamers have very often. They're worried about the the controller buttons, and they press in the wrong button, and then they get all paranoid and these kind of things. So onboarding, testing, locomotion is very important. If you have a really, let's say you make an application for, I don't know, for senior citizens or something, then it's better to do on rails locomotion, where you have as I said, a hotspot. You get your task done, then it automatically transfers you to the next hotspot. You do your next interaction, you get feedback, then you move on to the next. So it's basically automatic,
Right. Perfect. Great question, Liz, and thank you as well, Cornel. We got another one here from Ramana, and Ramana is wondering, where can I find the inspiration or examples for the storyboards and UI design mockups for XR?
Yeah, that's a good question, because they're very hard to come by. Because people don't share them. I don't share them usually. It's very often. Like for example, I do a lot of B2B stuff, SMEs. People are very. Most of the time the stuff is under NDA. You cannot show stuff around. It's not very public. And they don't want you to show stuff, and you have to ask people. You have to ask people for it. What I would do is look at something that you like and find people that are approachable and ask them. So for example, if someone would ask me, hey, I saw this thing. Did you do a storyboard? Would you mind sharing that with me? If someone asks really nicely, then I may do that, But I would say like, hey, I have to get permission, and then maybe I'll share it, that kind of thing.
Perfect. Thank you, Cornell. That makes sense. And Laura Amaro, I see you got a follow up to Liz's question around the non gamers and first time users. Let me know in the chat if that did help answer your question because it was a follow up to Liz's. But here's one from Radoslav. And Radoslav is asking, in your opinion, Cornell, which of the three subcategories of XR, so MR, VR, AR, will become mainstream and become integrated into our daily lives, the same way phones and smartwatches became an essential part of our lives?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, it's a widely discussed topic. I've had a lot of discussions about this. It's in context, everyone at the moment is talking about the metaverse, obviously.
Yep.
What is the metaverse going to be? Is it going to be mostly VR or not? Or so the way I see it is we're going to have a metaverse that has different levels. So we have like basically the basement of the metaverse is going to be AR. There, it's locked to physical locations. So like basically bytes locked to atoms, so basically, and this is where we connect to the real world. And then we have on the upper levels, we have increasingly untethered spaces that are not connected to the physical world. So I believe we have a multi-layered metaverse on different reality layers, so to say, right? And most likely in the future, I would think we would have a very easy transition between AR and VR. So where we have both, so where people can like have a switch on a TV on with their goggles.
Yep.
That's on the wall, and then they have some interactive content which they can easily switch to VR and explore a room, and smoothly go back to the TV on the wall. So that is what I believe is the future. So the smooth transitioning between AR, VR, and I think. But the first breakthroughs are expected, of course, with AR. Everyone has huge expectations about what Apple's going to do next. There's a lot of high expectations, but in the end, it's going to merge all together, I believe.
Right. Perfect. Yeah. No, great insight there, Cornell, and great question on others love as well. This one's from Danilo, and Danilo was asking, what is the biggest challenge in applying traditional design thinking methodologies to XR? So I think we might have touched up on it a little bit, but feel free to briefly shed light on that.
Yeah, traditional design thinking, design thinking is looking at the bigger picture about the strategy, how to, on product design, basically, right? And that's why design thinking is such a big deal, because it looks at the philosophy, how to design products. It's much bigger than designing UI or designing a menu or whatever. It's the big idea behind it all, and that's a huge inspiration for people. If you understand design thinking, it really enhances your life. You can look at anything and look at it from a design thinking perspective. Like any product basically can be improved with design thinking,
Mm-hmm.
And that's why design thinking is great for to look at the bigger picture, and then you zoom into the actual hands-on UX design process where you build the product. And I think all the design thinking methods and methods and techniques are applicable to XR, so because they are so much on a higher concept,
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Great question, Danilo, and thank you again, Cornell. This one's from Laura, and Laura was asking, is there any tool like Twinmotion for Unity? Can Twinmotion be used with Unity?
I don't think at the moment, to be honest. I mean, like Twinmotion, I love Twinmotion. You can download a demo and see if you like it. It's just a very enjoyable tool because it's so much fun to use, and it's so easygoing and it's so chill. And I don't think it's available for you. But if you, for example, if you have jobs where you need, as I said, like if you do like events with VR, or you do, like, for example, an experience, a gallery experience or something in VR, where it's more about experiencing an environment. Then Twinmotion is a good solution to do these kind of things, basically, And it's just standalone by itself. It's already a good application. But of course, the added benefit is the integration with Unreal,
Right. And Nancy just put a comment in the chat. Could you export the scene in FBX and import to Unity? Would that work?
I believe you can export. Oh, can you export as FBX? I don't think so.
Well, we'll look into it for you, Nancy. Awesome. Well, thanks.
Because I never do it. I always put it straight into Unreal, So
Right. That makes sense. This one's from Farzana, and Farzana is wondering: is there any design guide from UX designers, engineers, like thing for developers to help develop the XR product? Yeah, let me know if not, we can ask Farzana to clarify the question. But any thoughts, Cornel?
Yeah, design guides. Yeah, really, I looked at a lot of design guides, when I was writing the book. So the problem is a lot of these design guides become outdated really quickly. That's the problem. And you have a lot of people. There's a lot of writing on heuristics for XR. And very specific very often. And if you look at how XR, especially VR, has developed over the last few years since the Oculus Kickstarter, in when was it, 2013? In the beginning, people had like a lot of concerns about people, about motion. They were like over the top with their motion sickness concerns, where it was said like you cannot do smooth locomotion. Only teleportation is allowed, these kind of things. So the mindset has shifted from instead of like not allowing a lot of things to actually giving people options and actually more into giving the user superpowers. So the mind shift has really changed, and that was always also reflected in the design guides. Very often these design guides in the early days were super conservative, and we're very always centered around these issues, and a lot has changed since then, but it's worth checking out design guides. It's as historic documents sometimes,
Right.
But you have to find them, and there's if you Google VR heuristics, you'll probably find a few.
Perfect. Well, great question, Farzana. Thank you very much. This one is from Steve, and we do have about 7 minutes or so here. Hopefully the workshop doesn't end at the top of the hour, but Steve was asking, are there any great online communities, blogs around XR that you would recommend, Cornel, besides Circuit Stream, of course?
Yeah, I think the Reddit one is pretty good.
Yeah.
Reddit has a lot of activity on, and there's a bunch of good ones on Discord. So I have a bunch of specialized ones for Unreal on Discord.
Perfect.
And also for all my tools that I use, mostly on Discord. I would look for good, because Discord is so easy to use and so user friendly. So I would check on Discord what's available for your specific, and I would look. Very often these things are application oriented. Basically what application or platforms people are using.
Right. Perfect. Well, hopefully that helps out. Great question, Steve. This one's from Rosa, and Rosa's asking, I'm a product designer who is looking for an opportunity to learn XR. This may be an ignorant question, but do I need to switch to PC Windows from Mac if I want to design for XR? What are your thoughts there, Cornel?
I don't think so. I don't necessarily think so. Let me think about it for a moment. I think, I'm a Windows user. I used to be on Mac a long time ago, but I think it's these days. Most applications support both platforms, and I think Unity is Mac too, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
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 And Blender anyways, and even Twinmotion has a Mac version. I don't think you have to. I mean, the fact is though that there is more stuff on Windows. Everything 3D oriented. If you want to really get heavily into 3D stuff, into 3D modeling, all sorts of 3D tools, then I would recommend going into Windows, because you have a lot of super specialized tools that you don't have on the Mac.
Right.
But as a product designer in general, you don't need to.
Yeah. And a quick comment on this. The biggest thing kind of comes down to GPU, I would say, rendering, whatever you've created or designed yourself. And that's where PCs, Windows have the edge, is their GPUs tend to be stronger than Macs. Macs have the stronger CPUs. So if you're really rendering a lot of things, taking up a lot of GPU, then you might need to consider going to the Windows PC side.
Definitely.
But great question, Rosa. Great question. Let's see what else Yeah, we still got questions here. This one's from Rachel. Rachel's asking, what kind of specializations are possible inside of UX design for XR?
Very good question. I mean, traditionally, if you look at the job market, typically you see a lot of job ads for UX UI. Mm-hmm. The reason for that is these jobs usually come from the games market. Game development companies. They're looking for UX UI designers, and very often they're quite technical. You need to be good in Unity. You need to know your stuff in Unity, and you need to know the tools and tweak UIs. That's tweak menus and stuff. Mm-hmm. That's of course a very good focus area, because it's very there's a lot of demand for it, not only in XR but also in game development for other non-XR applications. But for XR, I would say it's probably good to if you specialize. I mean, if you build yourself a name for a specific industry, that's not bad. If you have if you do like architectural stuff, or if you do a lot of educational stuff, for example, I think it's always a good idea to kind of like have a focus area where you like for educational stuff, for example, and then build a reputation there. That's very often good for a career.
Yep. Nope. That makes sense. And great question, Rachel. Thank you as well, Cornel. So got a few questions here left, and hopefully we'll get through them all here. But let me know how you are on time, Cornel. Again,
I'm fine.
It's quite late. Perfect. Let's see what else we got here. So this one's from Deirdre, and question is, how would you approach developing XR for gamified e-learning apps? For example, how to create learning materials for AR/VR experience?
Yeah, I mean that's a big question. Gamified content for XR for what for AR and VR, or what was it?
Yeah, for AR and VR in general, I guess.
Yeah. So I cover that in the book, gamification, what it means, and what the components of gamification are, what is important, and I talk a little bit about a bit of the history of where things are coming from, and what really drives gamification, what the methods of gamification. And in general, gamification is nothing else than taking game ideas, like badges, awards, these kind of things that are very often, because we're using game engines. Unity is a game engine, Unreal is a game engine. Very often these things are quite easy to build because we have already the tools in front of us, right? So that's why gamification is actually a very I would say, almost say a low-hanging fruit, because we're using game engines and we have the tools for it. And and very often gamification can be very subtle. We all know, for example, the progress bar is everywhere. Wherever, if you sign up for a profile on some website, there's a progress bar if you have finished it. But often you have these very subtle gamification elements that are working so well, and it's like gamification has been such a huge success story in any industry. It's like taken over the world basically, so it cannot be ignored. And the tools are there. It's basically using game mechanics, using principles from gaming, badges, and these kind of things. I talk about it in my book, and applying them on non-gaming applications in a very subtle way. That's the thing.
Right. Perfect. Great question, Deirdre. Great question. This one's about your book here for you, Cornel. Ro is wondering, is your book unique to this subject? If we studied your book in depth, would we be in a good position to enter VR UX design industry?
Very good question. I like that. I think so. I think, the thing is like, to write the book, the book itself was a bit of a UX process, because I did user interviews, so basically I did my research. So the book itself was part of a UX design process, where I, ask people what are your concerns? What do you learn? What do you want to know? And what I heard a lot from people were kind of lost in the platforms, the tools, the technologies, what it means, like what's important, what's not important, and kind of like that was the reason for the book, to give it first of all a big picture overview of what is there, what are the different techniques, tools, platforms, what's the bit of the history, where things headed, and then take that and bring that into a case study and look at how things are done, So, and I think that book gives you a good starting point to understand that,
Right. Perfect. No, thank you for the insight, Cornel. Great question, Ro, as well. This one's from Nancy. Nancy, I'll answer this question quickly. Do you offer any scholarships and/or flexible payment plans for your courses? Yes, 3-month, 6-month, 12-month payment plans currently offered, applicable to the Black Friday deals we have going on. No scholarships at the moment, but that's what I'm working on for the new year, hopefully. Let's see. We have one here from Les, and Les is wondering, currently, when you are going to make an Oculus VR app using Unity, what package SDK framework do you recommend to use with Unity? Is it Unity XR or Oculus integration? Cornel, if you're not too sure, I can definitely share this with the team, but any insights you'd like to share there?
I'm not super up to date on Unity, to be honest. Once in a while I look into Unity just to check a few things, but I haven't exported like any things. So I believe the OpenXR is becoming the new standard now.
OpenXR, yeah. So take a look at that one, Les. OpenXR, and then I'll also share this with our instructors just to get some feedback there and send it over to you, Les. So we'll get that covered as well. Let's see what else we got here. So I don't want to take this one's from Gregory. Gregory, do you have experience with engines beside Unity and Unreal? Have you tried Godot by chance, Cornel?
I looked at it briefly. I like it. I liked it when I looked at it. Actually, I used to when I first came to Singapore, I was involved with the gaming startup. And I used a game engine called Gamebryo. That was a while back, and that engine was super technical. It was hell. Was really troublesome, So that's. You guys are lucky that you don't have to deal with this. Things have become a lot easier and smoother. And Gamebryo was a bunch of famous games were done with Gamebryo. The Elder Scrolls. What was it? I have to look it up, but it's a very powerful engine, but it's super technical. It involves a lot of scripting and coding and debugging. And I've looked at a bunch of other. Sometimes I like to explore engines. For example, I kind of like these super easy game engines. For example, the Buildbox, if you guys know that one.
I've heard of it. Not too familiar myself.
So it's like this super for super casual games, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like their approach because they make it so easy to publish on the iPhone and stuff. So I always find that interesting what people come up with, you know.
Right. There's James here in the chat. Gabriel was challenging for himself there. So perfect. Now let's do maybe 3-4 more questions here. So thanks for the question there, Greg. This one is from, and where is it? There it is, from Ramana. And Ramana's wondering which 3D specialization, modeling, lighting, animation, one should have to become an XR designer.
So I think for XR design, it's really important to understand PBR texturing, you know, because this is where things are headed to do really nice textures. And it's really important to be efficient with texturing because where you have limited resources in VR, you have to know your limits. You have to work around the limits, and that's a challenge. And people who are good at this are very hard to come by. I mean, very good asset designers who are very efficient with their designs, who bring the most out of the fewest polygons, basically. And I would focus on texturing and on modeling efficiency. Mm-hmm. On making efficient real-time models. That's super important. And you can do all of that basically in Blender. I mean, Substance Painter, of course, for textures. But I think modeling for real-time assets is very important, and texturing.
Perfect. Hopefully that helps, Ramana. Thank you for the insight as well, Cornel. So we've got a couple more here that we'll take care of. This one's from Kendall. Kendall's wondering, is it possible to create WebVR with Unreal? From my research, I've only found that's possible with Unity.
That's true. I mean, there used to be a thing for Unreal, and it didn't really happen. And it's Unity that's clearly better with Unity. I mean, in Unreal, it's not happening. And I mean, that's a huge advantage of Unity. I have to admit, because I think WebVR is going to be very important in the future. Mm-hmm. And I hope Unreal is going to pick up at some point, because I believe WebVR will be a huge thing, because there's no gatekeepers. It's not no one can control it. It's the open web, basically, right? And I really believe in it. And I sometimes I do prototyping on WebVR with Mozilla Hubs, for example. If you guys know that.
Yep.
So it's super easy to put something together, to test in like an easy training environment with multi-user interaction on Mozilla Hubs. It's a super nice way to test out ideas, for example.
Perfect. Great question, Kendall. Thanks again, Cornel. So let's do 2 more questions here. This isn't a question, but Hamid was saying, really, thank you, Cornel, for highlighting design processes so beautifully. I'm so grateful that I took it so seriously back in university, and I'm applying it to everything. So just some positive feedback there. Thank you, Hamid. Let's go. This one was from Louise. Question about your book. What made you want to write your book, Cornel?
Actually, to be honest, the publisher, they convinced me. At first I didn't want to write it at first, because I've written my first book because when I wrote my first book, I was talking at conferences a lot. That's also something that just happened. People asked me, "Hey, we need someone to speak here at the conference," and I went to speak at a bunch of conferences on VR, and then people approached me, "Hey, you want to write a book? And I thought, oh, wow, a book. Why? Hell, why not? And so then I wrote my first book, but then it was so much work. And I thought, oh, well, this is the last book I've written, but then the publisher approached me and they asked me, hey, do us another one, please.
Right.
And then they convinced me. At first, I didn't want to do it because it's a lot of work, really, and takes a long time.
Perfect. No, that's great to hear, and great question as well. No, this is great. And then I see Asma had made a couple questions here. She sends her regards to you, Cornel. She's a researcher in data science, cybersecurity, and a professional programmer. No question, but she just wanted to share her happiness to you from Egypt. And curious to know if you're ever going to visit Egypt one day, so that they could, enjoy some of.
Yeah, I should want to do that. I've been there in VR many times, so I want to see it in real life one day. Yeah.
Lovely. Well, hey, don't want to keep you all waiting for too long. Those are most of the questions that we were able to get through today. Thank you to the audience that's still currently tuned in to the workshop and webinar. None of this would be possible without you all registering and joining us. And Cornel, thank you again so much.
I hope it wasn't too long.
No, not at all. Everyone loved it. Lots of great value, knowledge nuggets. We have Kirsten here. Just got your book a couple of weeks ago. Thank you for writing it. So Cornel, thank you for everything, for your books, for your insights, for joining us today, showing everyone everything. All the love from the chat here. Really appreciate it, Cornel. Thank you.
Thanks. That's great. It's wonderful to hear.
Of course. My pleasure. And again, we will be announcing the winners tomorrow for the books by email. Cornel's publisher, A-Press, will reach out and send physical copies of the book. So again, thank you everyone for tuning in, joining us. Cornel, this couldn't have been possible without you. Thank you for everything you've done for the community. And
thanks for having me. It was great.
Of course. No, our absolute pleasure. And thank you all for tuning in. I wish you a great morning, night, evening, afternoon, day, wherever you're currently living. And to you, Cornel, have a great night and morning, because it's around there. Take care, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Bye. See you.